everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into AI agents today. Systems that can plan and execute those complex tasks with, well, minimal help from us humans.
Right.
So think less like a chatbot, and more like a really advanced digital assistant that can have an impact out there in the real world.
Yeah.
Our guide for this deep dive is, well, this research paper, Introducing the AI Agent Index. It's a database with 67 AI systems that were up and running by the end of last year,
Mm.
December 31st, 2024 to be exact.
Right.
And these aren't just, futuristic robots or anything. These are systems that are already being used right now, today, to write code, automate all those computer tasks that we all hate, and even conduct scientific research.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
It is. But before we get ahead of ourselves, maybe we should unpack this a little. Like, what exactly makes an AI agentic?
Well, I think the most interesting thing here is really how these AI agents operate. They're not just, responding to commands, or they're actually planning and executing these complex tasks all on their own. So it really is a whole new level of capability for AI.
Okay, so it's not just about following instructions, like step by step. It's more about understanding the goals and figuring out how to actually reach them.
Exactly.
The researchers behind this index laid out four key characteristics, four kind of hallmarks of agentic AI. I'm curious, do these characteristics help to explain how these systems are able to operate so independently?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with under specification. Like, imagine asking an AI to plan a surprise birthday party for, I don't know, a friend.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell it every single detail,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, you don't need to tell it to find a venue and send invites and pick out decorations and all that. The AI can figure all that out on its own just based on that one goal, throwing that amazing surprise party.
So it's kind of like you're giving the AI a mission, and then it just takes care of all the little details.
All the nitty-gritty.
Okay, that's impressive. Pretty cool. What's the next one? Characteristic.
So the next one is directness of impact.
Hmm.
These agentic AI systems don't just give you like advice or suggestions. They actually take action in the real world. So they can book that party venue online. They can write code for a new app. They could even conduct a scientific experiment, all with minimal human involvement.
Okay, this is where it starts to get really interesting to me. It's one thing for an AI to write code in a test environment, but to have it actually interacting with the real world, I mean, that's a whole different ball game.
It is. It really is.
That feels like a huge step forward.
Yeah, and that brings us to that third characteristic, which is goal-directedness. So these systems are designed to pursue specific objectives.
Right.
Like, think of a self-driving car navigating to a destination, or an AI assistant optimizing your work schedule. They've got a clear goal in mind, and they're choosing actions to reach that goal.
So it's not just about taking action, it's about taking the right actions, the
Yeah.
ones that'll lead to a specific outcome. Makes sense. What's the final piece of this puzzle?
So the fourth characteristic is long-term planning.
Mm.
It's the ability to break down a complex task into all those smaller steps and execute them over a period of time. And this is where things get really, really agentic, because the AI can, make a strategy and adapt to changes and even learn from its experiences to achieve that long-term goal.
Wow, this is starting to sound like these AI agents will be running the world someday.
Yeah.
But before we go down that rabbit hole, maybe we should step back to the AI agent index for a second.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before it documents 67 of these deployed agentic AI systems.
Yeah.
Can you break that down a little? Like, what kind of information does it actually give us about these systems?
So the AI Agent Index was put together by researchers at MIT and a few other institutions.
Huh?
And their goal was to document the technical details, the applications, and even the safety features of all these agentic AI systems. They got their information from publicly available sources and also directly from the developers of these systems. And the index is structured to give us a comprehensive overview of each AI agent.
Gotcha.
So it looks at things like the underlying language model that it uses, how it reasons and plans, the specific tools it can use. It also describes the system's intended use cases, like if it's meant for software engineering or scientific research or something completely different. And importantly, it tries to shed light on the safety features that have been built in and any risk mitigation practices that the developers are using.
Safety features, that's key. This is where I start to get a little nervous, to be honest.
Right.
It's exciting to hear about all these amazing capabilities, but it also makes you think about the potential downsides. What about the risks of, just letting these AI agents loose in the world?
That's a really crucial thing to think about. And you're right. You're right to be thinking about that.
Yeah,
In fact, the AI Agent Index actually reveals a bit of a paradox when it comes to transparency.
a paradox. Okay, tell me more about that.
So while the developers are usually pretty open about what their AI agents can do, like they'll often share information about the system's architecture, the intended uses, even even the code sometimes.
Wow.
They're much less open when it comes to like how they're making sure those agents are operating safely.
Ah, so it's kind of like, look what I can do, without that, don't worry, I'm being responsible part.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a little concerning.
Yeah, it is. The index shows that only a small fraction of these AI agents have gone through like a formal safety evaluation or have publicly available safety policies. It's almost like a car company boasting about how fast a car can go without, ever mentioning the brakes or if it passed any safety tests.
Right, right. Okay, so we've got the what and the why of the AI agent index, but before we jump into all the specifics of the systems that it tracks, I'm curious about the big picture.
Mhm.
What does this index tell us about where agentic AI is at today?
Yeah.
Is this like a small niche thing, or is this something much bigger that's happening?
Well, what makes this deep dive so timely
Hmm.
is the index shows us um, that agentic AI is definitely not just some, small niche thing.
Right.
It's actually growing and diversifying really
Yeah.
rapidly.
Hmm.
We're seeing these systems being used in all kinds of sectors, and the pace of development is, well, it's speeding up all the time. In fact, almost half of the systems in the index were released just in the second half of last year, 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge number. So it sounds like agentic AI is about to like really explode. Let's break it down a little further though.
Okay.
Who are the major players in this agentic AI world, and where is all this development taking place?
Geographically speaking, most of the developers are in the United States. Then after that, it's China, the UK, and Israel.
So it's a global thing, but it seems like there's a clear concentration in those leading tech hubs.
Yeah.
What about the types of organizations driving this development? Is it mostly big tech companies, or is there a more diverse landscape?
That's where it gets a bit more interesting, actually. While companies are, they're definitely the dominant players, almost a quarter of the systems in the index come from academic labs, and these are often released with a surprisingly high degree of openness.
So it's not just about, corporate profits. There's a whole research community pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly.
That's encouraging.
It is. It suggests that there's a real intellectual curiosity driving things forward,
Yeah.
and that the potential benefits of agentic AI are being explored from all kinds of different angles.
But let's get down to the practical stuff. What are these AI agents actually doing out there in the real world? Like what kind of real world tasks are they tackling?
So the two most popular areas, according to the index, are software engineering and something that the researchers call computer use.
Computer use. That sounds incredibly broad.
It does.
Can you give me like a concrete example of what that actually looks like?
Sure. Basically, it refers to AI agents that can interact with computer interfaces just like a human would.
Okay.
So think about systems that can automate tasks uh, on web platforms like scheduling appointments or managing social media accounts.
Okay, I can see how that would be super useful for both businesses and, just regular people. It's like having a super efficient digital assistant that never gets tired and never makes mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And another prominent example within computer use are AI agents that can actually solve coding problems on platforms like GitHub. They
Yeah.
can analyze code, find bugs, and even suggest solutions.
So these AI agents are essentially becoming programmers themselves.
It seems that way.
That's both impressive and a little intimidating. What other applications are we seeing in this computer use domain?
Well, they can navigate all sorts of complex software, extract data from websites, even generate reports. It's really all about automating those tasks that would normally require a human to, sit there and interact with the computer interface.
Wow, the potential for like boosting productivity and automation across, pretty much every industry is it's huge.
It is, yeah.
I can see why this field is getting so much attention.
hmm
Are there any other areas where these AI agents are like making waves?
Absolutely. So While software and computer use, they kind of dominate the index, there's some fascinating examples of AI agents being used in scientific research, in
Mm,
robotics, even in creative fields.
really?
Yeah. For example, in scientific research, some AI agents are designed to, analyze huge data sets, run simulations, and even help design experiments.
So they're not just, crunching numbers, they're actually contributing to like scientific discovery.
But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and in robotics, we're seeing AI agents being developed to control robots out there in the real world. They can do things like manipulate objects or navigate these complex environments.
Robotics. Now we're talking, are we talking about like systems that can control a robotic arm in a factory?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, a drone delivering packages?
Exactly. Yeah, there are AI agents being developed to control all sorts of robots, from industrial robots, like you said, in
Mhm.
factories, to drones used for surveillance or delivery.
This is mind-blowing. So we've got AI agents writing code, they're running experiments, controlling robots.
Mm,
It seems like they're popping up everywhere. But let's not forget about those concerns we were talking about earlier about, safety and transparency.
right.
How does the AI agent index shed light on those issues?
Well, that's where things get a bit more concerning. The index gives us all this information about what these AI agents can do, but it also highlights this big lack of transparency when it comes to, like, safety testing and um, risk mitigation.
So you're saying while developers are really eager to show off what their AI agents can do, they're not so keen on telling us how they're making sure those agents don't, go off the rails or cause some kind of harm.
Exactly, yeah. The index shows that only a tiny fraction of these systems have had any formal safety evaluations or have, publicly available safety policies. It's like a chef showing you this amazing dish, but then refusing to tell you what ingredients went into it.
Yeah, that's definitely a red flag for me. If we don't know how these AI agents are being tested or what kind of safeguards are in place, how can we trust them to, act responsibly?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's one that, researchers and policymakers, and frankly, all of us, need to really think about as this agentic AI becomes more and more a part of our lives.
Yeah, it is a big question. It really makes you wonder if we're, rushing into a future where these AI agents are making all these decisions that affect our lives, but we don't really understand the risks.
It's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it shows just how important transparency and accountability are in this field. It's changing so fast. I mean, we can't just assume that these AI agents will always do what we want them to do.
Right. Especially when you consider how, complex and unpredictable the real world is.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what does all this mean for our listeners? Like, why should they care about this, about the AI agent index and the trends it's showing us? We've given them a lot of information, but how does it connect back to their lives? Why is this important?
That's a great question. So, agentic AI is probably going to have a huge impact on a lot of different aspects of our lives, from how we work to how we interact with technology to even how scientific discoveries are made. It's not just about robots taking our jobs. You know, it's about AI agents changing, like the whole fabric of society.
Yeah.
And the AI agent index is a kind of a snapshot of this change that's happening. It's a reminder that this technology is moving incredibly fast, and we need to be, well, informed and engaged in this conversation about how it's developed and used.
It feels like we're standing at the edge of a tech revolution, and it's really up to us to decide what kind of future we want to create with these, powerful tools.
Right.
But like we've been talking about, there are risks too. So, what are some of the specific concerns that the AI agent index raises about the development and deployment of these agentic AI systems?
Well, one of the biggest concerns, like we've already mentioned, is the lack of transparency around safety. If we don't have clear information about how these systems are tested and what safeguards are in place, it's almost impossible to know like how risky they might be, for individuals or organizations, or even for society as a whole.
It's kind of like building a skyscraper without any blueprints or safety inspections, isn't it?
It is.
You might end up with a beautiful building, but it could also be a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly.
Are there any examples from the index that really show this concern?
Yeah, definitely. Several of the systems in the index, especially those designed for software engineering, can actually access and change code repositories.
Oh, wow.
And while this can be really useful for, things like automating code reviews or fixing bugs, it also makes you think about the possibility of them being used for, bad things.
So imagine an AI agent that's supposed to be helping you write code, but instead it like puts in vulnerabilities
Yeah,
or even steals your intellectual property.
that's a scary thought.
It is.
And it shows us how important things like strong security measures and rigorous testing are to
Hmm.
make sure these AI agents are operating within very clear boundaries. They can't be used for bad things. We need to be asking tough questions about how these systems are developed and what safeguards are there to stop these unintended consequences.
So it sounds like we need to approach this new era of AI with a bit of caution, not just, blind excitement.
Yeah.
Are there any other red flags or potential downsides that the index points out?
Well, something else to think about is the possibility that these systems could be used in ways that make existing inequalities worse or even create new types of discrimination.
Right.
We've already seen this with other AI systems like facial recognition tech,
Yeah.
which has been shown to have biases against certain groups of people.
That's a really important point. It's not enough to just, build these AI agents. We have to make sure that they're designed and used in a way that's fair and equitable. We don't want a future where these powerful tools are used to just reinforce existing power structures or create a new kind of like a digital divide.
Absolutely. And this is where policymakers and regulators have such an important role to play.
Mhm.
We need guidelines and regulations to address these ethical issues and make sure that the development and use of agentic AI is aligned with our values as a society.
So it sounds like there's a lot of work to do, not just on the technical side, but also on the ethical and societal side. It's not just about making smarter AI; it's about making a better future with AI.
Exactly.
This all sounds kind of well, heavy. Are there any positive takeaways from the AI agent index? Are there examples of these systems being used to, actually benefit society or tackle some of the big challenges we're facing?
There are. It's not all doom and gloom. The index is actually full of examples of AI agents being used for good in lots of different areas. We talked about their potential in, software development and scientific research, but
Yeah.
there are also systems being made to help with education, healthcare, and even environmental sustainability.
Those are some applications I can get behind. Are there any specific examples from the index that stand out to you?
Yeah, there's this one system that caught my eye. It's designed to analyze tons of climate data and help scientists come up with strategies for, dealing with climate change. It can model different scenarios,
Hmm.
predict what might happen, and even suggest specific actions to reduce emissions or uh, help us adapt to these changing climate patterns.
Wow, that's amazing. So we're talking about AI agents that could help us solve some of the biggest problems in the world.
That's the idea.
Are there any other examples in, say, healthcare or education?
Yeah, for sure. There are AI agents being developed to personalize learning materials and give students support that's tailored to them, helping them learn better and reach their goals. And in healthcare, there are systems that can help doctors diagnose diseases, plan treatments, and even monitor patients. This could mean better health outcomes and a more efficient healthcare system.
It sounds like these AI agents have the potential to make a real difference. But as we talked about, we have to approach this technology carefully, thinking about both the good things and the potential risks.
Exactly. It's not about just accepting AI or rejecting it completely. It's about understanding what it can do, thinking carefully about what it means, and working together to make sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
Well said. And that brings us back to why informed discussion is so important. Responsible development and everyone being involved in the conversation. It's not just up to the developers or the lawmakers, it's up to all of us to shape the future of AI to make sure it goes in a good direction.
I couldn't agree more.
Uh-huh.
In the end, the future of agentic AI depends on the choices we make now. If we're proactive and thoughtful and work together, we can use this technology to create a better future for everyone. But if we're reckless or don't pay attention, the consequences could be huge.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. I love that the future of agentic AI is being written right now. It really highlights that we're not just, sitting here watching this happen. We're actively shaking this tech revolution.
Exactly. And the AI Agent Index gives us a valuable tool to do just that. By tracking how these systems are being developed and used, we can better understand the trends, see the potential risks, and work together to reduce those risks and use the power of agentic AI for good.
I'm curious, what are some specific things that developers, policymakers, and even everyday people like our listeners can do to make sure that agentic AI is developed and used ethically and responsibly?
Yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming, to be honest. to think about how to make sure AI is developed responsibly, especially with something as complex as agentic AI.
Mm.
So what can developers do and policymakers and even just everyday people like our listeners? What can we all do to make sure these powerful systems are used ethically?
Well, it's a big question, but I think if we break it down, it can be a little less daunting. One of the most important steps is setting up some clear guidelines and standards for safety and transparency.
Okay, so like a rule book for AI agents, what would those guidelines actually say?
Well, for one thing, they could require developers to do really thorough safety testing and then make the results of those tests public. Kind of like a safety inspection for a new building.
Right. This would let independent experts take a look at those tests, see if there are any potential problems, and offer suggestions for how to make things better.
That makes a lot of sense. It would definitely help build trust and make sure that safety is a priority right from the start.
Exactly. And these guidelines could also set standards for data privacy, for making sure AI isn't biased, and even for explaining how AI agents make their decisions. We need to understand why these systems do what they do, especially when their actions have real-world consequences.
Yeah, it's like that saying, trust but verify. We need to be able to look under the hood and see how these AI agents are working, especially if they're making decisions that could affect us.
Exactly. And these guidelines should also address the issue of, well, who's responsible? Who takes the blame if an AI agent does something harmful? Is it the developer? Is it the person using it? Or is it, both? These are tough questions. But we need to start thinking about them now.
And that's where policymakers come in, right? It sounds like we need laws and regulations to keep up with how quickly this technology is changing.
Absolutely. Government regulation is going to be key in setting those baseline standards, making sure everyone follows the rules, and dealing with the bigger picture of how agentic AI affects society. It's not something that can be left just to companies.
So it's really a team effort then. Developers need to make safety and transparency a priority, policymakers need to set clear rules, and people like us, well, we need to stay informed and involved.
Exactly. Even everyday users have a part to play. Just being aware of these issues, asking questions, and demanding transparency from the companies who are building these systems, all of that can make a real difference.
So it all goes back to that idea of shared responsibility that we talked about before. We can't just sit back and watch this technology develop without, having a say. We need to be active in shaping it in a way that benefits all of us.
I agree completely. The future of agentic AI really comes down to the choices we make today. If we're proactive and we think things through and we work together, we can use this technology to create a better future for everyone. But if we're careless or we don't pay attention, well, the consequences could be pretty serious.
Those are some wise words to keep in mind. And with that thought-provoking note, we've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of AI agents. We've explored a lot today, from those four main features of agentic AI to the things we've learned from the AI Agent Index, and the importance of responsible development and regulation.
If you're interested in learning more, I definitely recommend checking out the AI Agent Index website. You can take a deeper look at the different systems and see what really catches your eye. It's a field that's constantly changing, and there's always something new to discover.
It's true, and this is really just the beginning for agentic AI. It's an exciting time to be following this technology, but it's also a time to be careful and think things through. As we move forward, let's all remember to stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged in shaping the future of AI. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.